Now, from WYDC TV, this is Big Fox News at 10.
All eyes on Ukraine tonight as Russian troops press their offensive, targeting the capital city of Kyiv. But could they be ready to lay down their arms and turn to diplomacy? Well, Moscow signaling it is ready to send a delegation to talk with Ukraine. Trey Yingst has the story.
Ukrainian officials say Russian forces are now operating inside the city limits of Kyiv. They are making an advance toward this capital city. This is significant, but it's important to note they will not get here without a fight. Today, we spoke with some civilians here in the capital who are hiding underground amid continued campaigns from the air by Russian forces. Take a look. The city of Kyiv is on edge at this hour. Russian forces are advancing on the Ukrainian capital, and we've seen armed police officers outside of government buildings trying to prepare for what could be a bloody urban battle. Underground in the Kyiv metro, Ukrainian civilians are waiting out the Russian air campaign currently targeting this city. Troops are within just a few miles of the city center, and there's a real fear that civilians will run out of places to hide.
We have nowhere to go, so we came here, to the underground. It's safer here.
In the coming hours, this battlefield will likely change significantly. If the battle comes into the city, we will see a lot more urban warfare and even Ukrainian forces participating in what will look like guerrilla warfare, trying to stop the advance of those Russian tanks and armored vehicles. If that does indeed take place, it will be quite a bloody battle for the sovereignty and control of this European capital.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he will remain in Kyiv even as Russia moves closer to the city. In a video released by the presidential office, Zelensky says he is staying in Kyiv in order to protect the independence of the country. Russia invaded Ukraine on Thursday and is slowly moving toward the country's capital. With the upsetting news and images coming from Ukraine, you might be wondering, how did it come to this and what may happen next? Big Fox's Matt Kleindienst spoke to a global politics expert from Cornell University to gain some insight.
Well, it's really a disaster.
Millions around the world continue to watch in horror as Russian forces continue their invasion into Ukraine. And one Cornell professor says his students are witnessing a conflict they aren't all familiar with.
So in the one sense, they do know war, but not a war like this in Europe, let's say.
Matthew Evangelista is a political science professor teaching on international relations. He says the invasion into Ukraine has much to do with what he says is Vladimir Putin's sense of grandeur.
Putin fancies himself a historian, and his history is quite distorted, and he really seems to have in mind reconstituting the Soviet Union.
However, Evangelista also ties the invasion to other historical factors, such as the failure of Russian democracy and the expansion of NATO.
That was certainly, I think, a turning point in making it very hard for the democratizing forces in Russia to get the upper hand, and it really paved the way for somebody like Putin.
Despite Putin's initial goal of dividing the EU and NATO countries, Evangelista says the invasion has united them in inflicting heavy economic sanctions.
Putin's plans have so far backfired, which may make him a bit more cautious about trying to do anything worse.
Anti-war protests have also erupted throughout Russia, which Evangelista says could lead to even more problems for Putin going forward.
Most Russians do not seem enthusiastic about this war. So I think, in combination with the economic sanctions, in combination maybe with the U.S. leadership of NATO, we could see a resolution.
He adds that the situation is constantly evolving and that it will be difficult to predict future events. Matt Kleindienst, Big Fox, WYDC in Corning.
Governor Hochul joined leaders around the world in condemning the violence in Ukraine and is offering to take in refugees. In a tweet, Governor Hochul stated that New York stands ready to welcome Ukrainians fleeing the violence. New York is currently home to the largest Ukrainian population in the U.S. Governor Hochul says she is engaged with the Biden administration on possible next steps. Across the country, COVID restrictions are being lifted, including an end to mask mandates in most big cities. Jonathan Seri has more from Atlanta.
There's growing evidence the Omicron surge is finally behind us. The U.S. now averaging just 65,000 new cases per day, down from almost 1 million at the peak in early January. And that's prompting more cities and states to lift COVID restrictions, including Los Angeles, where an indoor mask mandate in effect for much of the past 2 years comes to an end today.
I feel great. I think it's been needed for a while.
I'm skeptical. I think people are jumping the gun a little bit.
And L.A. is not alone. Officials in Baltimore, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Oregon all announcing an end to mask mandates as well. And in Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis announcing a new COVID strategy called Buck the CDC, claiming the agency is no longer following the science.
Simply relying on outdated CDC guidance when the experience has completely undercut that is not really a reasonable thing to do.
The CDC is expected to ease those masking guidelines on Friday, shifting their recommendations based on falling case numbers. It's part of a broader overhaul to the administration's COVID strategy, which is expected to focus on preventing serious illness and death. But the move is being criticized by some doctors who say the masks are needed to avoid another surge.
There are dozens of papers out there that say that the masks make a huge difference.
It's expected that under the new guidelines, most Americans will no longer live in areas where indoor public masking is recommended. In Atlanta, Jonathan Seri, Fox News.
Starting Monday, February 28th, New York City students will no longer be required to wear masks when outside a school building. Schools Chancellor David C. Banks made the announcement today. However, students, faculty, staff, and visitors will still be required to mask up when inside schools. The district says they'll continue to monitor case rates and work with the city health department to determine the right time to end the mask mandate inside school buildings. A Bradford County nurse is facing 22 felony counts for alleged fraud. Stephanie King is accused of falsely billing insurers and prescribing illegal prescriptions while having a sexual relationship with a patient. An investigation found that King gave over 3,000 illegal prescriptions to patients and billing private insurance companies more than $300,000. She was processed and released on bail pending the trial. It's day 3 of the trial for the ex-Louisville Metro cop charged in connection to the deadly police raid that killed Brianna Taylor. In court today, audio was played of an interview with one of Taylor's neighbors who said they did hear officers shout, "Police." Ex-officer Brett Hankison is charged with 3 counts of wanton endangerment in the raid, but not for Taylor's death. Authorities say Hankison was reckless when he fired multiple shots, some of which went through a wall and into a neighbor's home. President Joe Biden has selected Ketanji Brown Jackson as his Supreme Court nominee. If confirmed, Jackson would become the first black woman selected to serve on the Supreme Court. She would be the current court's second black justice. Jackson would be the successor to retiring Justice Stephen Breyer. Still ahead tonight, as the price of crude oil goes up, many Americans are stocking up on heating oil and filling up their gas tanks.
They'll order 100 gallons, but most of them want to fill up because they know it's going up.
The latest on the oil price surge and how much you could soon be paying at the pump.
Now, your Twin Tiers forecast from Big Fox.
All right, thanks again for checking in as we take a look at your local forecasts. And we'll start you off with a webcam from Binghamton, New York to our east. And as the storm system kind of winds down here, some lingering clouds and, of course, a little bit of lingering precipitation. That webcam from earlier in the day when the sun was still up. Here are some of the top tallies snowfall-wise that we could find over the last couple of days, nearing some double-digit tallies, even some higher amounts in a few communities, of course. But as we head into the weekend, it will be quieter. We're looking at more sunshine Saturday, high temperature of 32, and because we'll continue clear skies, we'll be a bit cool on Saturday night, down to 17. Another clipper rolls in. Doesn't look like it'll bring much in terms of precipitation. Mid-30s, could be warm enough for a little bit of a light rain-snow mix. And as I mentioned, we'll continue to monitor that as well. But light snow ends here this evening with some sunny conditions into your Saturday. By Sunday afternoon and into the overnight hours, we'll have another rain snow chance with minor accumulations And then behind that, we drop down into the 20s for highs Monday, but at least we'll have the sunshine. Keep in mind that we're starting off March 1st on Tuesday, so typically in the meteorological start of spring, the sun is much stronger than it has been over the last couple of months, and temperatures will actually respond next week to above average levels. So again, other than a stray flurry yet tonight off to our north, skies begin to clear. We wake up to some sunshine on Saturday. Saturday sunshine continues and clear skies into the overnight hours of Sunday. But once we head into Sunday afternoon and evening, our next clipper starts to take shape north of the Great Lakes region. And again, we'll watch that push through later in the day with that minor light rain snow chance. 12 degrees when you wake up and head out on your Saturday morning. That will be a little bit below the average, and because we'll have a northwesterly wind at around 5 to 10 miles per hour, it will feel just a little bit cooler than the actual air temperatures. So waking up to feels like temps into the single digits, not quite as cold as it was earlier this week, but here are those feels like forecast temps. Dress for the mid-20s into the afternoon if you're going to be out and about. And again, we will see some sunshine. Here's a look at the hourly temperature trend, starting off into the teens and then warming up to around 30 degrees as we head into the afternoon for Elmira and Corning. There are the daytime highs region-wide, again slightly below average. Average high for us is 39, 28 degrees though in Wayland. Sunday, clouds start to thicken up, especially later in the day. We'll have that light rain snow chance develop. And then Monday, a little bit on the cooler side in the wake of that system. And the extended temperature outlook from March 4th to the 10th, bringing us to above average levels. So the early part of March is looking warmer, no question. Saturday, again, 32 and some sunshine and a little bit of a mix on Sunday. Have a great weekend.
Officials are raising the alarm after several cases of bird flu have been detected in several states nationwide. CDC officials are keeping a close eye on it moving forward. Anna Eliopoulos has more from New York.
Health officials are keeping a close watch after several cases of avian flu, also known as bird flu, were detected in at least 9 states. One of those states, Florida, where the first case of the virus was detected last month in a duck in Palm Beach County. Since then, dozens of vultures and waterfowl have become sick or died. Animal officials in the state say they are keeping a close eye on the situation.
We're just trying to have an abundance of caution and making sure that we have all of our protocols in place just to be on the cautious side.
Cases of bird flu have also been reported in New York, Maine, and Michigan. If the flu spreads too quickly and enough birds become infected, economists are fearful it could lead to an increase in the price of chicken, turkey, and eggs at the supermarket.
This is kind of a wake-up call for us at this point. Let's just monitor it, let's see where we're at, and do what we need to keep our backyard flocks safe.
To protect their flocks, some are placing their farms under quarantine. But while the CDC says bird flu is not an immediate threat to public health, in a worst-case scenario, birds would have to be depopulated to prevent the spread of disease.
They should make sure that this doesn't spread. They should spread the word on education, isolate this flock that has it, and make sure it doesn't happen.
The last major outbreak of bird flu in the U.S. was in 2015, killing 50 million birds in farms across 15 states.
Americans are continuing to buy guns in high numbers and across virtually every state. Home and personal safety group SafeHome.org says Americans bought 19 million guns legally in 2021. That's the second highest total over the past 2 decades. Safe Home says overall and on a population-adjusted basis, more people are buying guns in almost every state. The highest year for gun sales was 2020, with 21.5 million guns sold. Texas, Florida, California, and Pennsylvania all sold more than 1 million guns. A convoy of truckers demanding to end coronavirus mandates heading to Washington, D.C. as the nation's average daily COVID-19 cases and hospitalizations continue to fall and more mandates and restrictions are loosened and lifted. Ashley Siriano has more.
Trucks around the country on the move, making their way to Washington, D.C. ahead of next week's State of the Union.
To the truck drivers around the world, now is your time to stand up. Now is your time to usher in a renaissance time of freedom.
The streets in one Southern California city filled with hundreds of supporters as dozens of convoy truckers set out Wednesday.
We are ready to roll on to D.C.
Just one of several similar convoys organized around the country, all with different starting points, departure dates, and routes. Modeled after Canada's Freedom Convoy, folks who are a part of America's People's Convoy mainly demanding the end of a national COVID-19 emergency and pandemic-related mandates. Other issues being raised, fuel prices and immigration. The truckers getting the support of fellow Americans as they hit the highways, others disagreeing with the message.
My community, the black community, has really been impacted by COVID. So I'm a proponent of making the mandates. We've got to get a control of it.
The parade of 18-wheelers, pickup trucks, and other vehicles aiming to arrive in our nation's capital next week. Law enforcement officials in D.C. saying they're aware of the plan and will be ready, especially after the January 6th riot. The Pentagon approved the deployment of 700 unarmed National Guard troops to prepare for the truckers' arrival and their anticipated protests.
A military veteran is buried after being missing in action for more than 70 years. Dave Alley has the story.
At long last, Private First Class Don Dowler is laid to rest.
To the family, for the military, for everyone to be able to have PFC Dowler returned home is a great honor.
Dowler's burial comes more than 70 years after he went missing in action during a battle in North Korea.
Bringing our veterans home that have been lost in conflicts in other nations. It's a healing process.
Following the 2018 summit between President Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, 55 boxes of remains believed to be those of American soldiers killed during the Korean War were returned to the United States. It was then through extensive laboratory analysis that Dowler's remains were positively identified.
Well, it means a lot to the family, especially because they always had a question in their mind of what happened.
When the call of our country was heard, our comrade answered.
An Iowa native, Dowler was from San Francisco. He was buried in Santa Maria since he has family in the area.
Oh, it's overwhelming for them. It just, at least they know he's home.
Where he was welcomed with open arms by many local veterans and community members.
I consider everyone that served a brother from a different mother. So to me, it's actually very emotional.
Since there's long overdue closure, and Private First Class Don Dowler may finally rest in peace.
We will hold and present, retire his MIA flag.
As the price of crude oil surges, many Americans are stocking up on gas and heating oil, fearing if they don't fill up now, it could cost them more later. John Monahan has more.
Paquette Fuel is busy. Mike Paquette says people are trying to fill up their oil tanks before prices go up again.
They'll order 100 gallons, but most of them want to fill up because they know it's going up.
Oil is now $95 a barrel. That's $3.50 a gallon.
Somebody gets 200, 220 gallons, and you're talking $800-900 for a fill up.
Mike's been in the oil business for 2 decades. He's never seen prices this high.
No, not like this. Not like this. In the last 2 to 3 weeks, oil's been up 40 cents. It's crazy right now.
People are doing what they can to cope. And you have oil heat at home?
Oil heat at home.
How's that hitting you?
Not too bad, because the pellet stove saves me.
Nathan DeFonseca says he sees it at the pump, too. What's it costing you to fill your truck up?
This is about $140.
And what was it last year?
Probably about 70, 75.
He, like many, frustrated by the ever-increasing prices to fuel his truck and his house.
To be honest with you, they're both horrible.
Owning a pet might be good for your brain. New research suggests long-term pet ownership can slow mental decline in older adults. According to the study, people with pets scored better on cognitive tests over the course of 6 years, showing less cognitive decline. Scientists suggest this slower decline could be due to the potential stress-busting effects of pets or the increased physical activity, which often comes with pets. We want to leave you with a smile. Women's History Month in March just got sweeter thanks to Hershey. Celebrate the women and girls in your life by enjoying Hershey's She chocolate bars. The candy company is highlighting the central role women play in our lives by highlighting the she at the center of its name. Hershey's hopes the colorful package change will remind people just how important women are to our lives. The chocolate maker is taking this campaign a step farther by donating $150,000 to the Girl on the Run nonprofit. That's an organization focused on empowering young girls. From our whole team, thank you for joining us. We hope you have a great rest of your day.